All right.
All right.
How are you?
Doing fine. I'm doing fine. Let's see how we're going to make what am I going to do today?
How are the particles?
The particles are still being accelerated as usual. You
As
know,
is their wont. Yes.
they're not gonna accelerate themselves.
Wait,
Uh,
I didn't think you accelerated. I thought you just detected. Or do you do both?
we do both. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what
Thank you, Matt.
happened? Oh, hi, Matt.
Matt was just being weird.
um,
um.
so the way that it works out specifically is that because we need um, we need a neutrino. We need a bunch of neutrinos to go impact our detector, and we need a lot of them, and we need a very specific energy range. So,
Right.
like the best way to do it is to create a neutrino beam.
Right.
Problem. It turns out that
It's really hard to aim a neutrino beam.
it's not a problem of aiming a neutrino beam. It's creating a neutrino beam that's hard because the best techniques that we have to focus a bunch of particles
Yeah.
in a beam so that we can just put them all in the same place and start accelerating them, and also the techniques that we have to accelerate them are
Okay.
all based on strong magnetic fields and electric fields.
Yes.
Problem: neutrinos are in fact neutral.
Right.
They do not have a
So
charge, so
you
we
can't
cannot
have.
accelerate them that way.
Right.
So the way that you create a neutrino beam, like actually, is
To create a supernova
not quite,
and then
but you
point it
have.
at your detector.
If we could just create supernova willy-nilly, that would be dope, and also terrifying.
I feel like if we've gotten to the point where we're creating supernovae, we've also solved whatever other problems we have in terms of detecting neutrinos.
I mean, yes, because we have created a supernova and we are all dead. So you're not wrong necessarily.
But the worst possible outcome, the worst
Yeah.
solution.
Let me boot.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So if you can't aim your beam, I mean, how do you create a contained beam of something that is that ghostly?
Okay. The spoilers is we kinda don't.
Okay. You just
What we
make a
do
neutrino bomb.
is we create a. I mean, creating a neutrino bomb like it's basically like reactor neutrinos do basically,
Right.
where you are like, oh, close to a nuclear reactor. There's just like a bunch of neutrinos happening at all times for reasons, so we can just be there and measure them.
Right. And they're flying off in every direction, and
Yeah.
eventually you'll catch one. Yeah.
The way that we handle this specifically in our case is that we create a beam of protons.
Okay.
Once you have a beam of protons, you can just crash it into a target.
Okay.
I believe graphite is specifically what you use for a target, but it doesn't. It can kind of be anything that has protons in it. To be perfectly frank with you.
I mean, I'm not a physicist, but a lot of things have protons.
Yeah, that is everything. That is in fact literally everything. So essentially, what?
Because it's expensive. Yeah.
No, I mean there are reasons. Some materials are better than other, and it has to do with your with how big their cross section is with free protons. Like,
okay.
Ideally, you would like to have hydrogen, but you can't have solid hydrogen. So like
right.
you want
well,
you want
can,
something that is gonna
have to get it really cold.
Yeah, that's hard and also unnecessary. Like, so what we do. Either way, like, you want materials that have a high probability of interacting with a proton that's being shot at them, but
right. And when you're doing that, are we good enough at predicting paths that we can know which directions the neutrinos are going to fly?
Not exact. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
So you shoot
Not
protons.
Surprisingly, it's more complicated than
You shoot protons into.
Can understand.
You shoot protons into a target. Okay. Now that you have your target, you essentially, when baryons interact with other baryons, there's a whole bunch of baryonic crap that pops out because baryons are complex objects. What you are doing actually is causing quark to interact with other quark, but you have this envelope, this proton that contains all these quarks that are main different things. So there's all of this junk that gets spit out, and in the midst of this junk, there is a specific type of particle called a pion.
Called a what?
Called the pion.
Okay. Basically,
there are two big types of baryons, which are matter made of quarks. There are oh shit, a red dragon. What about? Oh, I was supposed to steal from this guy, I think, also. Right, yeah, something like that. So anyway, there's a the total number of quarks in a specific quark composition has to be effectively 0, is the thing. But if you like a red quark, a green quark, and a blue quark combine to 0, is the thing.
Okay.
So you can either have 3 quarks that do this combination of it wasn't too hard, of being 0. Otherwise, the other thing that you can do is you put together a quark and an anti-quark.
Yes.
And that it's 1 plus minus 1 and it makes 0. And those are called mesons, essentially. Yes, as opposed to baryons, which are protons, and that collectively all material that is made of quark is called hadrons, which I kind of missed on earlier. So, do I have float? I don't have float. So what you do is you create these pions. Pions are essentially a lighter particle that is created by a quark and an anti-quark. Okay. And there's a bunch of different ways to make different mesons, but this is the one that is most common to make because they're made of up and down quark, which are the most plentiful in matter because they're the lightest. So now you have these things.
Does that have a charge?
Yes, pions do. There's 3 types of pions, and 2 of them are charged. There's a pion with a positive charge, a pion with a negative charge, and a pion with a neutral charge. So what we do is we can decide to focus either all the plus pi, or all the minuses pi, depending on whether we want antineutrinos or neutrinos, respectively. Right. Neutrinos or antineutrinos, respectively. And those still have a charge, so you can focus them. And because of the nature of focusing, you kind of you still have you're also selecting for a specific energy range. Yes. That is kind of how focusing works. So now you have a bunch of pions that are focused in a beam and that are hurtling through a giant pipe. Well, it turns out that pions are unstable.
Okay.
So if you make them go for long enough, most of your pi manos, so if you say that you're focusing positive pions, all of those will end up decaying in a positive muon, which is a heavier version of an electron, and an antineutrino and a neutrino. Sorry. So now you have neutrinos. And since the particle that originally contained the neutrino had a large forward momentum, the neutrino is also very likely to have a large forward momentum. You still get the possibility of... you still get small angles that get created, but that is how you make your beam. You just make a beam of particles that you can make a beam and then force them to decay. You also have contaminations because muon themselves can decay. and they produce neutrinos when they do so. So you kind of need to say how long your pipe is, so that the pions have the time to decay, but the muons made by the pions don't have the time to decay.
Okay.
And occasionally also it's also unlikely because pions have more than one channel of decay. Muons are just the most likely. So you also get some false positive for example, when decays into electrons. And
Okay.
but so that is a small contamination to your beam. But that is how you make a neutrino beam. You accelerate protons, you make pions, create a beam of pions, because that's something you can do. And then those pions decay into neutrinos, and if your pions were them fast enough, the neutrinos also will be fast.
Yeah, that actually is remarkably well explained, because it makes sense to me, and that's remarkably hard to do. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like a shotgun shell.
It kind of is, yes.
Yeah, like when you pull the trigger, this is a whole thing. And then part of it is going to get accelerated out through the barrel, which is a shot cup that's holding all of the shot. And then when the shot cup leaves the barrel, the shot cup is actually able to catch air, and so it releases, and all of the shot goes flying downrange in a semi-predictable pattern.
Yeah. We know it has some amount of forward momentum, and also there's momentum in other places that we can't really
right
control.
you know roughly. I mean, it's what would you call that in complex systems? That's I mean, it's not a true chaotic attractor, it's a point attractor, right?
Yeah, right.
Like it's going to replicate, or not a point attractor. What's the one between a point and chaotic? The one that assumes a set pattern, like a water fountain.
I'm not sure I remember. I'm sorry.
Can't remember. But anyway, because there's strange attractors. Well, I'll just look it up because it's not that complicated. Strange attractor versus. What are the three kinds of attractors? Blah, blah, blah. Motivation of attractors. Change, non-linear. Oh, come on. Give me the Fisher-Price My First Attractor version.
The other
types of attractors. Okay, so there's fixed point, which is like where everything settles down. Limit cycle. Yes.
Oh, I see. I understand.
A limit cycle attractor. So it's happening within a pattern, but you can't predict exactly where everything's going to happen within that pattern. And in fact, we even call it patterning a shotgun. So if you're taking your brand new, or at least new to you, shotgun to the range for the first time, you just bring like a billion sheets of cardboard and you shoot a bunch of rounds at the cardboard to see where all the pellets go. So that way you can predict where it's going to shoot. Because every shotgun's going to be a little bit different, first off. But second off, like even within shot to shot to shot, there's going to be some level of variance, and you need to figure out where the windows on that variance is.
Right.
So that's neat. Yeah, I mean, that never occurred to me because I'd heard people talk about neutrino beams before. But it's not actually a neutrino beam. You're accelerating another particle that produces neutrinos.
I mean, it is a neutrino beam, it's just you don't produce it directly. Right. And because of that, the tolerances on what, like, for example, A neutrino beams are tend to have a much wider band in the energy that that you can produce, because you can select the energy of the pions, but once it's decayed, so essentially the idea there is that if you are in the system is in the frame of reference of the pion itself, when you're moving solidly to the pion is steel.
Okay.
There are two decay products, and they have an equal probability of going in any direction as long as they're back to back. Like they can go like these or these or these. Like it doesn't care, because the problem has perfect spherical symmetry, right? Like once you have picked a direction that one of the products go, you know that the other one will be ejected on the opposite side, because that's how you conserve momentum, since the original momentum is 0 for this party. Also, it has to stay 0. But but outside of that, they can go in any direction they want. Now, what you're doing is kind of boosting this frame of reference with a whole lot of forward momentum. So now these products kind of do this, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. Where now they're all forward, but they still have an angle, and you still have a lot of variance even in your frame of variance, because there was still so much variance in terms of how the original problems.
That becomes more like a grenade launcher than a shotgun.
Yeah, like
if you were launching a round grenade and you launched it at, 150 miles an hour towards a target, when it detonates, some of those particles are going to go backwards, but they're still going 150 miles an hour forward. And of course, particle speeds.
In our case, we are going so fast that even if a particle got ejected like directly backwards, it would still be going forward in the frame of reference of the laboratory, but that is the lowest possible energy it can have, because you kind of have the energy of the particle fighting against the forward energy that you have given it, as opposed to like all the other opposite case, right, where now the neutrino is being shot forward solidly, and you kind of like have instead have it boosted by the reaction of the other particle that is going backwards.
Right. Because now it's what do you call that? Like getting a gravity boost off of a planet. Or throwing a tennis ball at a passing semi.
Well, it's more like you're kind of shooting a tennis ball from the top of a speeding train. But like now the speed that the tennis ball gets to compound with the fact that the train is also going forward at a fast speed, and now your tennis
actually was a problem in World War II when they were training when they were training gunners on airplanes, because when they trained them, they were in stationary positions, and the targets were moving past. But of course, if you're flying in an airplane, you're moving also, and they didn't train them on that. So like there are situations where you need to shoot behind your target to hit it instead of in front of it, and it took a while for them to realize like how lax the training had been, because people hadn't thought about that. If you're speeding past a stationary object on top of a train and you need to shoot it, you have to shoot behind it. You're leading yourself instead of leading the target. That's very cool.
So that is the
weird question. Like what is the energy range of like naturally occurring neutrinos? Like, I mean,
it depends on how they're naturally occurring. Is the thing.
Okay, but like if a neutrino hit your detector,
which they do a lot.
Which they do. Like, what level of certainty would you have that was a naturally occurring neutrino that hit your detector versus something that was produced by mankind?
there is a big difference in terms of
just like raw energy.
No, I mean that's a thing, but more importantly, it's just that. What am I trying to do? I am trying to use Y2. There you go. The big difference there is honestly that most of quote unquote naturally occurring neutrinos are going downwards. Sorry. Like that is how we do most of our discrimination. If a neutrino is being produced, that's probably being produced in the atmosphere because that's where most things that are in man are. So at that point, it's going to be going.
It's going horizontally across the surface.
Yeah. So if it's it's not a perfect system. It already It's not to say that is. Didn't take any damage from Zeninage.
The key is we have to point the Earth at the nearest supernova.
So, but for example, that's the other thing. Like supernova neutrinos are a lot more energetic than, for example, solar neutrinos.
Right.
Supergigantic neutrinos are, in a large case, way more energetic than what we can make.
So you would know just based off of the energy.
We could, but also unless the supernova is happening at like a very unfortunate angle with respect to us, we can also know based on direction. It's a combination of things.
Sure. Well, I mean, also physicists talk to each other, so you can just be like, "Hey, did you produce any neutrinos?"
And also like, "Hey, was there a supernova?" Because that is the one.
Or is it feeling kind of supernova-y in here?
Like there is.
Maybe it's just me.
There is a program called SNEWS that is the early supernova, the supernova early warning system.
Okay.
And basically, their job is being like they collect data from a bunch of different detectors that are that are sensible to it. And the moment that there is a supernova that you suspect, there is a supernova is happening, and it's pointing like we can see a supernova. Like suddenly, that's how they communicate. Oh yeah, she's not. They communicate to all to people, to everybody that has a detector that can see such thing.
Okay.
And
by the way, guys, there's one coming. Like
yeah. Like it's a matter of like because the moment you can see a supernova usually for a matter of like a few seconds, right? Like
yes.
Well. Again, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Specifically, the way it's gonna work is that you're gonna get multiple flashes. In our case, the neutrino flash tends to be a little delayed, just because on the simple fact that neutrinos travel almost at the speed of light.
Right.
Whereas photons actually travels at the speed of light. So.
That's amazing. So then, like, okay, interesting. And they want. So if that happens, on the other side of the universe,
depends on what the other side of the universe is. How like.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to like parse what I'm saying here. Is okay. The further away that the supernova is relative to our detection equipment.
Yeah, the more the delay will be. It's kind of like
okay. That's what I was going to ask. Is there more of a gap between?
Yeah. It's kind of like lightning, right? The farther away it is, the more the distance between the thunder and the lightning is.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
The same idea. It's the margin is a lot smaller, and neutrinos are like photons all go at the same speed. The only way that photons arrive earlier or later is because stop just murdering everybody. The only reason that some of them arrive earlier or later is because basically they take different paths. I'll hear your funny story in a second, Tim.
Okay.
Because space-time is curved, right? So like if they take like slightly different paths around the star, they can end up in different
because their velocity didn't change, but one had to go a little bit further.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
but that's the only scenario basically in which I'm just out of here. That is the only scenario in which that causes neutrinos. That causes photons to actually go, but for neutrinos, the more energy they have, the more they're actually close to the speed of light. But we're talking about the difference of being continuous being out of here. We're talking about the difference of milliseconds, right? Like we're talking about going at 99.99% of the speed of light versus 99.9999% of the speed of light or something like that. That's that is the type of difference. But over a long distance, that still ends up.
I mean, if you're traveling 100 million light years,
yeah.
I do love how like there are only two kinds of astronomical miscalculation, and that's massively overestimating things or massively underestimating things. And my favorite example of that is like because people have like been told that stars are really far away, they actually massively overestimate how far away stars are. So, like, if you asked your average layperson, like, how old the light was that was getting to you from any given star, they would say, like, 150 to 200 million years. And it's like, that's Alpha Centauri.
Yeah. No, that's probably about 8 minutes old. Chill for a second there.
Yeah. Obama was president when the light left that star.
Like this sounds pretty close. Let's not. Well, the sun isn't that close. It's just the light's really fast.
Well, I mean, also, if you're talking about astronomical units, the sun is pretty fucking close. Like
the sun is exactly 1 astronomical unit away.
Yeah, right.
It turns out.
Look, I love how, like, after 1,000 years of science, we went right back to just standardizing things off of like measuring whatever was closest to us. Like,
I mean, we don't use astronomical units necessarily for
we
astronomical.
went from like measuring our thumbs and the distance from our nose to the tip of the finger, to it's the nearest star. That's 1 astronomical unit. Yeah, some things stay the same. All right, man.
I mean,
I'm gonna hit it.
It
was good talking to you.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you.
And good luck. You're still Final Fantasying, I assume?
Yeah, I'm currently on playing Final Fantasy V.
Nice.
Which is an interesting game. So the most interesting thing I've done in this game is that. So basically, this is a game that has a class system, and the way that it works largely is that you have for each job, basically each character you give him a job, and that's their main job, and the job always comes with a number of like passive abilities that are innate to it, and then like a number, and then 1 command. But then also each character has a sound command that you can. That you can give among all the ones that you have mastered as you go forward. Oh, speaking of mastered, I need to change Krilli's class. She has mastered the ranger class. So So what you can do is you can do a lot of mixing and matching. For example, in this case, I have a character that knows that I've had the Master the Ranger class, so that they have the ability Rapid Fire.
Okay.
And Rapid Fire basically means that instead of attacking an enemy once, you attack random enemies 4 times but at half power. But it still deals, you end up dealing double damage, right?
Okay.
But how if if the character also had mastered the ninja class, so that he or she could use the ability dual wielding, which lets them have 2 swords. So now you're attacking 8 times.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So
that's cool. Yeah.
Currently, my main character is Bart. He's a ninja, so he can dual wield. He has mastered rapid fire, so he does the 4th attack time. He also has welding 2 weapons called twin lances, which automatically attacks twice every time they do. So every time he attacks, is 16 attacks.
That's awesome.
It takes like 30 seconds to go through.
I love stacking bonuses.
It's so good.
Nothing is satisfying as that. Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, man. Well, have a good night. Good luck with the game. And did you say you were going? You went tonight or?
No, I'm probably going tomorrow. Matt was there
tomorrow night.
But,
okay, well, I might be there as well. So might see you.
I'll see you.
Yep.
Later.
I have to figure out what kind of interesting costume I'm going to wear because if I'm gonna show up,
it's not Halloween.
What's that?
It's not Halloween.
I know, but like you gotta bring some kind of flair to it.
Okay.
All right, man. Have a good night.
I'll talk to you later. All right. I believe it's 8 minutes away, team, but I can't know. It's possible. I'm just wrong. Let's go with dual wield. We'll bench rapid fire for now. I'm actually gonna, for now, I'm gonna take a bit of a pause with the streaming and return in about 10 minutes. So yeah, I'll be back soon. Bye.